Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Thiele Mironova. I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at Intrado. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to come join us on today's webinar, Enhancing Your PSAP Situational Awareness by Leveraging Streaming Video within Power 911 for Precise Dispatching. Today, we are joined by Jay Malin at Agent 511 and Denis Marin, the Senior Product Manager at Intrado. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And if anyone has any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A feature within Microsoft Teams. It is found in the top kind of middle panel of the Microsoft Teams user interface. We will try our best to get to your questions at the end of the webinar. And so just hang tight.
All right. Thanks, Marie. Can everybody hear me? So thank you very much for the intro. So I wanted to cover PSAP initiated video and multimedia at the PSAP. It's something that Intrado, it's part of our mission. So we're there to save lives by improving public safety outcomes, and we do that in a few ways, of course. So we've got our features like locate before route. We've got our emergency data broker, which is getting additional information to the PSAPs from over the top and additional data repositories, and our call handling platforms that are in your public safety centers to take calls. But of course, we've been looking at the market a lot, seeing that there's a lot more out there that we could bring, and we really saw that the role of multimedia in this public safety outcome was critical. So glad to be to show you what we've done here. Get some questions, get some feedback. I'm joined here by Jay, my partner. I won't say partner in crime, but partner in video at the very least, and partner in multimedia. So Jay, I don't know if you want to say a few words about yourself, maybe talk about a bit about your background.
Sure.
Start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate it. It has been a wonderful experience, not only getting to know you, Denis, but working together. I think we've truly been able to put something together wonderful in even a fairly short period of time. So really great to be here. My name is Jay Malin. I'm Managing Director for Agent 511. I've been in the industry for around the last 15 years. I'm a co-founder of the Agent 511 organization, and we are focused, like yours, on improving accuracy in dispatch and hoping to save lives and create better outcomes for those that are experiencing probably the worst day of their lives. So happy to be here and happy to enjoy this partnership with Intrado. So looking forward to the conversation and topic of how can we deliver multimedia streaming video to public safety agencies in a seamless and effective way.
All right, thanks, Jay. And a bit about myself. My name's Denis Marin. I'm with Intrado. I've been with Intrado for 2 years now, a bit more than 2 years. Product manager on the Viper and Power 911, both the desktop and the new web application. I saw the opportunity to introduce video to the platform because, as we're seeing now, the role of multimedia at the PSAP, it's something that we've been getting a lot of questions about. From our PSAP customers. It was also something that we saw was available through a lot of third-party applications, additional applications that weren't necessarily integrated as part of the call handling platform. So we saw an opportunity there to say, well, one of the feedback or one of the comments we had a lot from the PSAPs would be great if we could take these applications and integrate them into the call handling application. Which we did here, because we really see the role of multimedia as something that's becoming more critical. It's everywhere now. People have their cameras. There's so many cameras out there, so many pictures that are available. It's also become a technology that the public is very very familiar with. It's become something that's become easy to use. And also the price points have come down quite a bit from having to do this. It's the type of technology that requires on good data, on good infrastructure. The costs have gone down. Most folks now have a good data plan. So it really addresses, a critical need that this technology now to be able to get more information to the PSAP. And also to offer another communication path to the PSAP to be able to reach out to the caller in a different fashion. So it's really become something that we see is being used more and more. Lots of demand for it. I think PSAPs still have a lot of a learning curve as to how to best use it, but it's something that we wanted to bring in and make sure it was integrated into the call handling experience, not just from the perspective of taking the call, but also what happens after the call. The archival of the media, making sure that it's accessible, making sure that it's in your reporting as well, so that everything comes into the the call handling infrastructure. Jay, I don't know if from your view, you've got more experience in the area of video than perhaps I've had. Like from the various scenarios that you've seen, um, how do you see that evolving in the PSAP?
Look, I see it as being a tool that many PSAPs are tentatively using, is available there. They're starting to do their training. They're starting to include it in their SOPs, so it's part of their process. I've worked with agencies for many years that are using what I'll call MMS or multimedia almost with every call, meaning they're initiating the outbound capability to offer that ability for callers to respond with, pictures and recorded video. And now we're at a point where real-time live, you have the ability to get real-time streaming video. And I think it's an evolutionary process, but ultimately having it available as a tool in the PSAP, in my opinion, leaves you open to using it when when you unfortunately need it most, which may be, severe weather, large-scale incident,
Right.
hiker that has an emergency need, and they're able to share that video with you. So I think it will continue to evolve as a tool, and combined with all the other features, the location as a complement to text, really is giving PSAPs a critical toolkit that they can start to use to create that accurate dispatch and go back to our organizational mission statement. So um, I think it's evolutionary and starting with simpler scenarios, maybe an accident that's occurred, property damage, but really, you know, we see it almost every day, every week that there's more and more severe need for more critical information that will hopefully provide that information both to dispatch as well as to first responders.
Right. You mentioned an interesting point just there is that, you said that it's the PSAP that initiates this, that initiates the communication. Um, I often get the question too about, why don't we just accept multimedia directly from the callers right away, whether it be through text by text attachments, or just starting a video call. I know that most of the solutions, and we're not an exclusion here. The solution that we came to is something that's an outbound, something that the PSAP initiates. Do you see like this type of media being something that the caller can send automatic on their own without having the PSAP requesting it?
I don't see that at this point. I mean, in general, we have seen the ability for call takers and dispatchers, and especially when integrated with Viper or Power, gives them that control of the situation or control of the video or multimedia. And I think that's critical both for where we are today in this process of evolution, but even so. I don't know that most agencies are ready to receive unsolicited video or multimedia. It doesn't, they don't have the ability to answer it, but moreover, it doesn't include the same fundamental considerations that a voice call or text call through the carrier network with that routing and data have. So I haven't seen that, but I do think we're on the right path, at least with an OSIF as listed there is within the NINA I3 spec for initiating outbound communications. I think it falls in that category. So there is a basis for doing it, and I believe that our integration has done it right. Are you seeing that as a requirement? I know you have more access to some of the initiatives for next gen. Are you seeing that inbound is it, or really that this is taking the role that may ultimately evolve into that?
Right. Well, we've definitely seen, from a customer perspective, from at least from RFP information or request for information type activities, we've seen a need and we've seen customers ask about, what's going to happen with inbound media, be it video calls or just being able to send pictures in. Um, I think it's interesting to say that if you're looking at video, the current, I3 standards do support it. So from an I3 perspective, you can make a video call. There's not many next gen providers that provide that capability. It does require that your phone be able to dial 911 video, which is not something that's rolled out at this time. So we do see it, but then again, we're also like saying, okay, so we want this video, but one of the feedback that we're getting as well from customers is that they don't want necessarily unsolicited video at the PSAP. In fact, one of the big features that we've done here is with the outbound, even the outbound initiated video, is the ability to blur, right? The ability to blur, the ability for the call taker to not even see the video. So it's interesting to see that the standard supports the video coming in, but that the PSAPs at this point maybe don't want to. They want to keep that control that you mentioned. They want to be able to control when they see video. The other thing about the multimedia is that from a file perspective, very difficult from a file perspective to send files over the EZINet through a standards means. That currently, if you look at the way that the standards are built and the current structures available in additional data, there's just no means to send that type of binary file in the existing fields that are available. So um, I think that the standards are going to allow it and evolve, but I still think that the PSAPs are going to want to keep that control. And maybe on an inbound call when we do get it, to clearly indicate to the call handler that, hey, this has a video component. Do you want to see it or not? To keep that control that we've got right now with outbound calls.
And where have you seen, once you have this, this media, what are you starting to see in terms of the evolution of your product roadmap? Where the first responder fits in it? How are you kind of seeing that evolve as well?
Yeah, I think that leads well into the use cases that we're seeing, right? So if I go to the next slide, of course, location, being able to drive and leverage the location information that's available on the device. That's one of the use cases that we've seen quite a bit. Person of interest, being able to say, hey, I've got a picture of what of the person as of the suspect as he left the scene. Being able to assess the damage, just to be able to say, oh, is it a big fire, a small fire? Don't necessarily just have to go off the the verbal description of the scene. To actually be able to see it sometimes can help size the scope of the incident. And of course, active shooter situations where you just want to be able to have eyes on the scene as much as possible to get an accurate or as precise picture as possible what's going on. So we started very much with, our first release was very much around just PSAP initiated video. The upcoming release is going to be about PSAP initiated multimedia, right? Where you can request files, where you can request location as well. So we see all of those use cases being addressed. From an evolution perspective, short term, medium term, that's the evolution of the product. Longer term, of course, there's lots of potential of starting to look at AI to process those images to give you some information, more information about there, just in post processing as well, to just be able to look at a video and mark the specific times in the video where there was things of interest, like a firearm, or when things were mentioned or specific keywords were triggered. So yeah, I see those use cases being all covered with this multimedia enhancement. How about on your side, from a product and use case perspective, where do you see this evolving?
Look, I mean, I think you've identified at least a couple of components that really add integrity to the process. Being able to ask somebody for their video or multimedia and locate them to verify, the integrity of that information, using the front rear camera flip as a way for the call taker dispatcher to, kind of get a sense of not only what is being shown to them by the wireless caller, but also what may be on the other side of it. But really, I think, real-time video expands the range of capabilities. And regrettably, looking at the fourth panel, which I almost hate to mention, I think that's one of the places where being able to share real-time video, location information will continue to deliver, additional insights, for first responders, and be able to share it off of Power or Viper will really deliver that comprehensive end-to-end experience where, wireless users sharing it, first responders seeing it, they're able to make real-time decisions. So that's where we continue seeing it go. But I think you're 100% right. When you look at, you know, the complement of these multimedia solutions, and add to it, AI, which I know is an oftentimes used buzzword, will really kind of round the corner for us from a seamlessness, from an increase in accuracy, for a reduction in the amount of time it takes to do dispatch, because now you could meta tag. Like you said, you could go back to a particular frame where you want to see, the weapon, the accident, the loud sound. So all that's going to contribute to our body of knowledge. And really, the next, after we get through kind of the bigger multimedia traffic, will be to add intelligence around it, so it's that much more usable. And I'm looking forward to that kind of continued phase of the partnership.
Right. And maybe on the use case of location, I just maybe wanted to make one thing that doesn't often come, is not often reflected or doesn't stand out in the discussion, is that 911 call, we already get pretty good location, phase one, phase two. I think the important thing here is also to realize that location, though, on administrative calls isn't as easy to get. In the legacy alley world or the legacy camera world, you could do an alley dip even when you got an admin call. That's not something that's available in the newer i3 networks. So I see the ability to get location even on administrative calls. So calls that originally came in but finally end up being somewhat of an emergency that require a dispatch. Being able to request the location is also a very compelling use case for this solution.
Right. And therein, for that type of location, you're not responsible for the same protections from the FCC Act for 911 location. You're now asking the mobile user on their phone to opt in and share their location. So it's something that could be readily requested and added to that part of the conversation. And you're 100% dead on that. Whether it's administrative or non-emergency calls, you now have the capability of utilizing these similar tool sets on an opt-in basis.
Right. And maybe some, just for the crowd here, some quick screenshots of what this implementation looks like on the Power 911 desktop application or web. So they're very, very similar implementations. So you'll see on the right here that we've implemented a multimedia panel where we can request video. So little icons showing the request video, request a chat. So if you want to start chatting over text with the caller, if you want to request location, if you want to request files. We haven't talked about it much as well, but there's also a share icon. So important to get the information to the PSAP, to get it to the first respond to the call taker, but also to get it to the first responder. So if you want to be able to send the video and get multiple people on the video, there is also a sharing function that's been integrated. It allows you to share by SMS or share by email to one of your contacts. So being able to do that and share that so that the first responder as well can get the picture or can get the video, participate on the video, and see it live, maybe as they're on their way to the scene. So that as well is a feature that we saw that's very important to our customer base, to the PSAPs. So yeah, so just a very a very integrated into the call flow. The call comes in, being able to have the number auto populated. We really saw it important to be able to integrate this into the call taker application. Not have to swivel chair into another application and retype the phone number and do that separately. So integrated both when we want to launch it as well as post call. If you get the call coming back from the same phone number, have available in your history that you've seen. You've already launched video with that customer or with that caller. So that I find is a very good integration. So that's from a video perspective. Ability to blur, ability to switch the camera around as well. and of course, ability to terminate the video session is important. The caller will see if their video is being monitored or not, so they know that they've got confirmation from the PSAP that yes, somebody is looking at this current camera stream. So very nice integration. When we see that, we've been taking feedback where it's an early or it's still a young feature, but it's working well. And of course, we're incorporating feedback as the product matures. Um, functions that are coming up, being able to chat, being able to receive multimedia files as well. So I think that's important in context like somebody's got a picture of the license plate of the perpetrator. I don't know, Jay, other use cases that you may think of around there.
Property damage, vehicular accidents, person of interest. I mean, these are the ones that I predominantly seen for recorded pictures so far. And, many of them speak to somebody calls 911, they're wanting to report or provide that information, and now it's easily accessible. I remember going to a PSAP many years ago, and they literally had flipped out their, their camera phone or their phone, and were receiving them directly on phones within the PSAP, and then trying to transfer them into CAD that way, and certainly did not create the auditability or the experience intended for all parties. So, I think this seamlessness really, and combining this with records really, provides the kind of experience most agencies would be looking for. Um, I think any of the video options, crime in progress, etc., those could just as easily use those. I think in those cases, folks are either likely to just, use provide media after the fact as part of the investigation, or go to streaming video, which provides that real time experience. So, but I think you're dead on with in terms of what kind of media we're seeing, and a lot of it's been, more about incident reports and damage. But the license plate is certainly a right one. I think MMS and text even provide a sense of anonymity. So, I've collected that information. I, just want to share it, make sure that public safety, has that information, can act upon it.
All right, thank you, Jay. Location sharing. One of the other use cases that we talked about is being able to request the permission from the caller to share their location, send them a link so that they can share that location and make that available. It's not shown here, but as well, once that location is received, to be able to say, okay, well, that location has now become my new incident location, and being able to spell that to CAD. So you mentioned CAD earlier, so it's something we haven't talked much about, but being able to share that with CAD as well is also something that's very much in demand from all of the PSAPs as well. So be it share the links or share the links, add that in the notes in the CAD. That's another mechanism, of course, to make that information available to the first responders out there in the field. The precision of that from it's straight from the phone, so the precision really depends on the phone settings as well, but it's very important to note that we also get an idea of the precision. So you see here in this case it's relatively the precision isn't a very fine grain. It depends on how the caller has their phone settings set. So another interesting use case there, and that's all what's happening during the call. And what happens as well to all that information. So Jay, can you talk about what you're from all the streaming that's being received? What are you doing with that information from a retention perspective?
Sure. So all of that information, multimedia data is being stored in a CGIS compliant bucket. So that information is all stored there. We will follow the archive policies dedicated by any PSAP. So we'll archive typically multimedia for a year and text for 3 years. However, those policies are configurable and certainly could be shortened based upon any customer requirements or needs. And once that information has been stored, it's available both in multiple ways. And One of them is within our portal. There's reports and ability to play back multimedia. I know that there's ways within Viper and Power to access that information. And then we're continuing to evolve it to look at how we could send this to recording devices so that, you get that full chain of custody that you could go through from an evidentiary perspective and verify from, the initial conversation with the wireless user all the way through to subpoena or information is required based upon your local registration regulation that information is accessible. But that's where I see it. But you may have other ideas based upon what you're seeing from some of your customers, and we're trying to evolve that story to ensure it's seamless and easy to access.
Right. Well, from our perspective, what we've seen is that we've been requested to be very secure, right? We've requested to have it very secure, and our very first releases, we were actually downloading the media to be able to play it back to the PSAP. That quickly became apparent that yes, it was, of course, maybe overly too much, consuming too much bandwidth, but it was also a security concern because once you had that file on the file system and anywhere, it was easy to just take the file and share it. So we've really secured that, right? And we work together to get the preview mechanism such that when you're looking in the call taking application, when you're looking at either the multimedia file or the pictures or MMS content, that we're only just looking at a preview that's right on the web. We're not actually downloading any media. So we can see the information, but we don't actually have the media to be able to share it. We've also made sure that the links, so the links during a call, we want to be able to share the links. We want to make sure that people can get access to the information as easily as possible. But once the call's over, we want to make sure that that media is as secure as possible. So, one-time tokens, making sure that if you do get the right to see the file, you'll only get the right to see it once, so that you can't just share a link with anybody else to see it. Like I said, the preview functionality that we've done, but that allows us to do all of the playback functions and see all the information, so you can review it and the information's accessible to the call taker, but really making sure that that's secured. Logging everything to CDR, making sure that everything goes out for reporting purposes. When video is requested, when a file is received, when we share a link with a first responder, when we access a video file for replay as well, making sure that that's tracked, so that from a security perspective, you're covered to know who's accessed the file and when. And you're right. You mentioned your, being able to access it from the cloud. So, I mentioned that from the PSAP call handling application, we wanted to make sure that we could only preview the files, and we see that it's a supervisor function that will actually have the rights to go and download the files. So a specific portal and log in for these supervisors so that they can actually go retrieve and actually get the file. Again, one-time downloads, one-time tokens, but once they get the file, then they have the file. It's for them to make sure they download it to secure storage. Getting requests for evidence management, coming back to the roadmap perspective, that's maybe one place that we're going to start looking at to say, how do we get this information and really put it either in evidence management system or share it with central recorders. I think as well, those two aspects are probably items that we want to look from a roadmap perspective. The functionality is there to do that integration today, but seeing if there's anything that we could get, off the shelf that would make sense for our customer base. That would be areas that we're looking at. I don't know on your side, Jay, from a retention perspective, I've had the question about how long, but there's also been the question about how short. Any thoughts around that?
Look, I mean, how short is 0? I mean, we could also, after the conversation is over, share the information with any of the recording or third-party devices and purge it from our database, so it really never exists after the conversation has been posted to a recording device, and even at that, simply remove the media or never archive the media. So that's certainly an option to go from 0, meaning it's never recorded or never stored in the archives, all the way through 1 year and beyond. And as we know, some of these multimedia files, can be fairly large. They're several megs in size. You can see there in the recording panel, it actually provides you the size of the file, and there's another location where it shows you the duration. So, some of these files can be, quite large, and may or may not be desirable to keep them that much, or may be desirable not to store it on premise and store it in our cloud offering for a period of time. So we're seeing those various combinations play out, but the flexibility exists in our joint platforms to be able to accommodate those types of policies. And I hear you when many agencies don't want it downloaded to the desktop, so they even have prohibitive desktop policies that won't allow for storing media. So the preview option, which we just worked on and deployed recently together, makes a lot of sense. So you can just kind of watch or retrieve your media within the platform, but not download it to the desktop.
Yeah. And you make a good point about the storage, right? This is video. It's not, the files themselves. If it's a picture, that's not too bad, but videos can get quite sizable. And it's an example of what we can do with cloud technologies by being able to keep this in the cloud, is that we're able to deliver this feature, this functionality, without having to uplift anything at the PSAP, right? The same call handling platform. You basically need to, enable the credentials to be able to access the service, configure the profile for the multimedia panel, and up and you're running. So I find that, storing this as part of the service makes a lot of sense to help with the rollout of the feature. And the security around it as well is a lot. We can control that security, and that's access from a centralized fashion.
It goes back to your original comment, or one of your early comments around modest costs, which I know always seems a little shocking. But if you look at where we are today, 4G, 5G mobile phones, cloud-based technology, using web and the various, internet-based components, not only reduces the overall cost, but in my opinion, enhances security, because we're not finding PSAPs responsible for securing the media and the entire experience. It's something that, working together, we've been able to secure and ensure that there's integrity in that process. So I totally agree with you.
All right. Which brings us maybe to the subject of bandwidth. So bandwidth is, of course, we're talking about video. We're talking about video making it to the PSAP. So from a delivery mechanism, Jay, what have you seen as the different technologies that are used to deliver that to the PSAP?
Right. I mean, generally speaking, it is delivered over the public internet, although there are options for, whether the EZNet or other kinds of configurations. And certainly bandwidth is always a consideration. Typically the bandwidth, and I had stated before, was maybe in the 350 kilohertz, but we've seen them as high as 800 kilobits per second. But what we've done is we've enabled adaptive bandwidth control. So essentially, it'll adapt to the available bandwidth in the PSAP. I view that there is an evolution. We may at some point, based upon working with customers, there are limitations in bandwidth and may restrict the amount of media, et cetera. But with these adaptive technologies, combined with that flexibility, I believe that it's a problem that's readily overcome. But it does require, again, if an average agency has several multimedia sessions and at the same time, I mean, you're talking 2, 5 megabytes per second worth of bandwidth would allow them to have anywhere between maybe 5 and 6 simultaneous conversations. But again, if the PSAP designates a certain amount of bandwidth, the quality of the experience may degrade slightly, but it will allow more and more media based upon using adaptive bandwidth. So I don't know if that dovetails what you're thinking. I'm thinking
that adaptive technology is something that is very cool, right? So it's really allowing us to deploy with less concerns around bandwidth, although we do need to plan for it. And you mentioned the public internet. I know that I've got some PSAPs that say, well, I've got my existing AT&T EZNet links, for example. Just to understand that if you want and you want to use your existing links, be it for EZNet or be it for if you've got dedicated business Ethernet links, that is also something that you may want to look at to make sure that, hey, I've got secured bandwidth from a business Ethernet type provider to get back to the data center. So in in our hosted deployments, we're backhauling all their traffic over those dedicated links to back to our data centers, where the data centers then offload and get the video through to your systems. Which brings a bit the question about, from a security perspective, any concerns around security of the traffic as it's transiting, be it over the internet. Maybe less so if you're going over your private links, but definitely for when you're going over the internet. Any concerns there?
Look, the traffic over the internet is generally encrypted. We use, SSL type encryption for it. So you do have the encryption there. And then, the recommendation, and we've provided some recommendations for IP as well as domains at the firewall to essentially allow access exclusively to those, domains, et cetera, which same for Power and Viper, providing and limiting access so that only these flows, these spare traffic is able to traverse that domain. So, A, good firewall policies, B, the encryption over the internet certainly helps with verifying the integrity of the transmission. And certainly, like you said, there are options as they evolve for EZNet, for other network securitization technologies that can be leveraged. But so far, this has also allowed for much more accessibility in using this information and sharing it with first responders.
All right. From a dependencies perspective, for a PSAP to deploy this, like, what do you see as, the base requirements for them? Like, we talked about internet access, bandwidth, either through their EZNet provider or through direct. But any other requirements, from a complexity perspective of implementation?
I don't, from a complexity perspective, I mean, it's a matter on our side of provisioning their tokens that get placed within Viper and Power that simply make the connections. It's fairly readily done. There's really no new infrastructure needed beyond Power and Viper. So having those systems and, kind of web and internet-based technologies will allow you to readily access it. So, key thing is in the firewall, ensuring that there's access to those streams, which there's a recommendation guide that's provided to those customers that are wanting to do that, or working in partnership with Intrado and Agent 511 will help you with that. And that's really, that's it. Also, you want to ensure they have the bandwidth capability to do this. Probably the old 1.44 meg may be a little restrictive, but we're now at a point in time where many agencies have the bandwidth capability, recognizing they want this kind of rich information to help with their dispatch. So,
one question we do get often is all these PSAP initiated messages, they go out to the callers via SMS, and the question becomes, do we need a TCC in order to deliver this? So, I wanted to make sure, like, from a complexity perspective, that SMS service is part of the service, so that we don't have to combine this with the TCC.
Yes, entirely true. I mean, love to see those customers get enabled for text to 911 through the TCC, working closely with the Intrado team. But separately, this is a service that can be deployed in, both for text to 911 as well as this call taker initiated texting. And certainly as part of that call taker initiated texting, we send the SMS via commercial network. It comes from the number 911 in the United States, which is a standard number that we uniquely lease and have offered to Intrado customers. And there are other options for both international as well as those that want their own kind of specialized number. But out of the box, this capability is offered. It supports both text as well as multimedia, and certainly the streaming video. And it's a fairly secure and audible way to engage in SMS communication. So yeah, I mean, I think you make the point that we're not going to other third-party service providers or TCC or the carriers to get additional support. It's already there and out of the box, which means this can be readily deployed, and it alleviates some of those other finer points with getting text to 911 provision, et cetera.
Right, and you mentioned the point about being able to be text to 911 as well, and just brings up the point that when we do receive the original call, not by voice but by text, So it's actually a caller that's calling in 911. That we will empower Viper use the TCC to continue the conversation for all the PSAP initiated video. That's a question we get often, so I just wanted to clear that up, because we want to avoid having two text conversations going, one with the TCC and another one with the PSAP initiated for the PSAP initiated functions. So we really do combine and make sure that we've only got one SMS conversation going with the caller to for the best experience there.
Which is really an outcome of the integration here. So that's only something you could uniquely do if you have that integration with the 911 call handling capability. Now you could add some of these additional flavors like the streaming video directly within that. So
Yeah, that's really a differentiator because we've got it combined in the call handling platform. Absolutely. All right. So we're I don't know, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're not too bad. We're quarter two, so we'll leave some time for some questions. But key takeaways, Jay. I don't know if you want to cover that one.
look, I mean, I think the reality is video and these combination of multimedia technologies, they may not satisfy every situation, but they're going to satisfy a number of situations. And having this capability is no longer, as we call, a nice to have, meaning there is an expectation by the public. We see it in commercial practice, so we are now familiar with these technologies. So there's an expectation that 911 should have access to these. And it's, look, I don't know if we convinced everybody out there that this is easy to do, but as we have seen in our own demos, and I encourage folks to, request a demo, see how it is. It's fairly easy and straightforward to click, initiate, receive the text, press the button. I mean, it's actually kind of fun to watch. So it is easy to do. And the reality is, and this actually in part came out of some recent conversations at the NINA JCM this past week. Over the top is real. Doesn't mean that they are exclusive of the standards in I3, but these technologies offer new and enhanced capabilities, and oftentimes will lead the way for enhanced dispatch and accuracy. So I think a lot of these capabilities are really here to stay. I see a long path towards evolution, a strong partnership by which we can continue to involve the intelligence, with this. So I think the takeaway is, if you don't have this, heavily consider it. If you're looking at an easy way to do this and you have the option, go ahead and move forward with an integration because it will ultimately leave you with a number of tangible benefits and really hit the second bullet point. It's easy to do. So I think we're at that place in time where this is now an accessible, moderate cost technology, and agencies should be taking a closer look if they're not. And I think we have a compelling solution here that will accommodate that.
All right. Thank you very much, Jay. So Maria, I don't know if you've been monitoring the chat. Maybe it's time to open up for some questions. Anything? Did you find it, or has there been any queries?
Yes, there have been a few questions. Let me start with, why can't we do this using I3 standards interface? Why does it have to be over the top?
So I3 standards, like I mentioned it a bit earlier, but from a standards perspective, there's definitely video. Video could be done by standards. So from a perspective of being able to take in a video call, that's possible. Being able to do a video call outbound, however, and request that the video be sent, that's something that would be maybe less under the control of the PSAP. But the I3 standards for video are there. I would say, though, however, that the technology from the I3 vendors not necessarily ready for that type of stream of communication. Multimedia files currently not possible with the standards, so that really is something that we need to do over the top.
Okay.
I don't know, Jay, anything to add to that one?
No, the only thing I'd say is, I mean, again, back to the comment about over the top, it's not intended to be exclusive of what the standards are. It's just over the carrier network, using the combined web technologies really provides easy access to media, but it doesn't mean within the PSAP, we can't strip out the video flows or audio flows and bring them in as, SIP H.264. It just, we've provided a very convenient, easy way to access it today. And I think ultimately we'll see more and more kind of integration of this into what's considered next gen standards.
Yes. All right. Thanks.
This
Marie, any
is
others?
Yeah, there's actually several. This is an interesting one. Do you see AI being able to pre-screen video for graphic images?
The answer is yes. So something that would kind of like do an auto blur. So if or a pre-screen, I think from the technology maybe is not quite there to be fast enough in the context of a 911 call. So definitely we could screen it a post call if you wish, but really processing it live to say, oh, before the actual frame makes it to the call taker, with a few seconds delay to do the processing, it would be pretty intensive to do. I see that. I do see it becoming something as the technology evolves and the processing costs go down, that we could do. I don't know, Jay, your thoughts on it from an implementation perspective.
Yeah, two things. One, we have already played around with using existing, we'll call them AI tools as a way to dissect pictures. So being able to determine, intent, violent rating, what may be in pictures is, kind of already out there, and we'd have been able to do that and add that as tags. But if you look at streaming video, I think it actually goes to the flow. The fact is, the flow is initiated by the call taker. So there really is no pre-screening other than if it was initiated by the wireless user and used as a pre-screening technique within the agency. But I think your other point that, speed of implementation or of, actually running AI and active flows, there may be a lag. And I think the best case scenario is collecting and meta tagging that. So as the flow is occurring, if somebody wanted to go back to a particular point in the video, I think that would be useful. So, I've now passed it off to a first responder. They're looking at the video, but they're able to see at 132 in the frame, there was a gun or some other incident that is tagged and identifiable. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I agree. Maybe technologically being able to in real time tag it is not there yet, but I think there are use cases that can be accessed and made available today.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Is video 911 available to all Intrado Viper customers or only newer deployments?
It is a Viper 7 feature. So from that perspective, it's available to Viper 7 customers. If we're looking at Viper 5.1, it's not available on 5.1. It's available to Viper 7. But it's available as an add-on, right? So if for existing Viper 7 customers, their recent releases are able to support this functionality.
Okay. What is the benefit of integration with the call taker station versus a separate application?
Well, definitely not having to log in to another application. I think that's the first one. Swivel chair, go to another app, another screen. I think there's things as well like being able to integrate with the TCC that you can't do if you're not integrated with the call taker application. Being able to easily see in the history of your calls or even all the PSAP inventory calls, being able to see that there was multimedia attached to a previous call right in your call handling screen. I think that's also something that's very beneficial. So yeah, I think it's just making it making it as easy to do, right? We want this to be easy to do, not just from a technical implementation perspective, but from a training perspective as well, to make sure that these are applications the call takers are already familiar with, and it's just an additional panel instead of being a whole new application. Jay, anything to add on that one?
I mean, I think you covered it for the most part, many of the benefits of integration. One other is if somebody has dialed into 911 and now you're requesting multimedia, if you have it right within the call handling application, you could initiate that video request outbound without, having to copy and paste and, cut or move around. So really the integration delivers an extraordinary amount of value.
Yes.
So that's the only comment I have, but good question and, good answer.
What happens after the incident? Where is all of this information or data kept?
Jay, you want to take that one?
Yeah, as mentioned before, after the video has been completed, after the video is completed, it is archived in a CGIS compliant bucket. We share those links with the various applications, either as Denny showed on the dashboard, it's accessible. It can be made accessible within the agency itself. Again, it requires authentication and session tokens to be able to access that data. And then lastly, as Danny also alluded to, we are working with some of the recording vendors to ensure that those flows may go there as well. So in lieu of recording it in our storage facility, you may choose that as part of your chain of custody or in accordance with your laws and regulations that you want it stored on the recorder. Those are options that may be available in the near future.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
Let me see. Is audio shared with the video feed, or is the audio component from the phone dialer?
So yes and yes. So from there is an audio feed with the video. There's an audio feed with the video. I don't know if you noticed on the screen earlier that we had it muted. There we go. So what we wanted to do there was to make sure that from an audio perspective, that it's a 911 call or it's an admin call. We did not want the audio of the camera of the phone interfering with the the 911 call. So by default we turn it off. But when we share the link, the audio is available to the first responder, for example. So the first responder could then be able to hear actually what's going on and hear the microphone of the caller, essentially. So we were careful to not interfere with the video with the audio path on the call taker screen, but it can be enabled on the first responder links.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah. I believe that covers it.
All right.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. This is a recorded webinar, so we will share the recorded on-demand video with everyone that attended, probably sometime next week.
All right, Jay, thanks for your help. Thanks for
Thank you.
participating
Likewise,
with me.
Marie, Denny. Yeah, great being with you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Very nice having you today. Thanks.